Part 2, Vess R3600 and Vess J3600 series, hardware installation and cabling. In this segment, we'll show you how to install and cable the Vess R3600. If you've previously racked a 2, 3, or 4U server, this will be easy. Vess R3600 series comes with everything you need for rack mounting the unit. Inside the box, you'll find a 1.5 meter power cord, a sliding rail assembly, and associated hardware for rack mounting, and the quick start guide. For this demo, we've already installed the rails on the rack. Note that 2 people are required to mount the Vess R3600 and Vess J3600 units safely. Now that we've racked Vess R3600, let's install a JBOD expansion chassis. Here we will go through the full setup for the Vess R3600 RAID head, Vess J3600 JBOD, a gigabit Ethernet switch for management and data access, and a 1U server with gigabit Ethernet ports for the iSCSI or NAS feature. Now let's take a look at the Vess R3600 interconnectors and LED indicators. For this demo, we're using a Vess R3600 model with gigabit Ethernet and optional 16 gigabit fiber channel interfaces on dual controllers. Here we have RJ11 to RS232 serial connector, one 12 gigabit SAS JBOD expansion port, USB port, an RJ45 gigabit Ethernet port for management, 4 RJ45 gigabit Ethernet ports for data access, including iSCSI, and the optional quad 16 gigabit fiber channel ports per controller, or alternatively, optional 10 gigabit Ethernet ports per controller, and the power connector. On the front panel, there are 2 USB ports for the OPAS log collection process, a power button, and a mute button used to silence the audible alarm. Now let's take a look at the LED indicators. We have SAS expansion status LEDs, fiber channel port speed LEDs indicating 8G or 16G, BBU status, dirty cache, controller status LED, and password reset switch. For the Vess J3600, the main interconnectors are an RJ11 to RS232 serial connector, incoming 12G SAS port and outgoing 12G SAS port, power connector with status LEDs, the I/O module status LEDs for each SAS port per controller, and the PSU status LED. LED status indicators on the front include power, global enclosure status, controller 1 activity, controller 2 activity, and system heartbeat. Global enclosure status references the general condition of the enclosure component status. Global RAID status provides a general assessment of the status of the disk pool. Use these LED status indicators to help monitor system stability and data accessibility. Individual drive status can be viewed on the disk carrier LEDs located on the front of every disk carrier. Vess R systems are designed with redundant components that are field replaceable and can be swapped out with no downtime. Let's take a look at the field replacement units, also known as FRU or FRU. Vess R3600 FRU are the power supply module and RAID controller. Vess J3600 FRU include power supply module and the I/O module. The hard drives are hot swappable. The battery backup unit is located inside the power supply unit. Power supply units are also hot swappable for enclosures with dual power supplies. For details about power supplies and changing or hot swapping power supplies, please go to the Promise knowledge base at kb.promise.com. Next, let's cable the system. Now we can plug in power cables and connect the 12 gigabit SAS expansion port to the Vess J3600 JBOD. Use the SFF8644 cables provided with the JBOD unit. Now connect 1 gigabit port from each controller to the gigabit Ethernet switch used for the management connection, and 1 gigabit port from each controller to the gigabit Ethernet switch used for the data connection. The cabling is now complete. Now we can power on the Vess J3600 and Vess R3600, making sure to do so in the proper order. Always power on the Vess J3600 JBOD units first, before powering on the Vess R3600 RAID head. Allow 4 to 5 minutes for the units to fully boot up. Check LED indicators on the front and back of the Vess R3600 and Vess J3600 to view the current status. When the system heartbeat LED is blue, the systems are ready for configuration using the web management interface. The system hardware setup and cabling are now complete. In our next video, we'll cover initial software setup for the Vess R3600 and the client.